Neville. Am I boring you?
What, dear?
I said, am I boring you?
Boring me? That's a good one. I'm having the time of my life, dear.
Neville, did you say a pig is climbing up the outside of the house?
Yes, I believe I did, yes.
Welcome back to Disney Marvels for week of June 27th, 2021. This is episode 141. Disney Marvels, the show about Disney, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Muppets, Pixar, 20th Century, the parks, and much, much more. If it has to do with Disney, it's fair game. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. So this week's poll, I want to know, what is your current favorite series on Disney+. Particularly what's just coming out, the new stuff, the fresh stuff. The options being Loki, Bad Batch, High School Musical, the series, Zenmation. And on Twitter, I put this out on Twitter and on the Facebook groups to be able to spread around and get a better feel. Twitter 100% said Loki. Strangely enough, Facebook was almost the same thing. Almost 100% of everyone on Facebook said Loki. One person actually wrote in the Imagineering story. Not a current one, but we'll take it because it is on Disney Plus and it is a fantastic, fantastic series. Again, I say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Disney Plus, definitely one of your best values out there for the amount of content and the quality of content that you get. And the type of content. It is absolutely spectacular. But everyone's loving Loki at the moment. I'm loving Loki. It is, unfortunately, we only got a few more episodes left. We will see where we go from there. I don't know what they're going to throw at us next, but it has been spectacular. And there will be a Loki series review coming shortly. Stay tuned for that one. And on that note, we'll be back after a message from our friends and sponsors. And now, on with the show.
Hey, how are you guys fixing to pay?
What are our choices?
A, credit card. B, cash. C, sneak out in the middle of the night.
We'll take C.
Very popular choice.
40 years ago, on June 26th, something significant happened. June 26th, 1981. It wasn't a moon landing. It wasn't the space shuttle taking off. A movie that was so profound and had such an impact on people's lives was released. This was the greatest Muppet movie ever made. No, not the greatest Muppet movie ever made, because that was not made. So hopefully one day you will see the light of day again. No, this is the Great Muppet Caper. Great Muppet Caper came out June 26, 1981, to theaters, and arguably is the best Muppet movie ever made. Directed by Jim Henson, starring all the zany people of the Muppet Company, and then some. Even friend of the show, Mike Quinn, was involved in it. This is a fantastic show. It's where they kind of really go in their own direction. And speaking of going in his own direction, I had to bring in the man
I love it.
who is a bear and a frog. Or is he a frog and a bear? I can't tell if he's wearing a hat because the top of his head's got up by the screen. Matt Leonard is back to discuss the Muppet Anniversary. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. This is one of my favorite movies. One of my all-time favorite movies.
Period. That we're talking movies of all genres, creations, and whatnots.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. This is a really well done movie.
It's it's sort of what I was saying when we did the show. We talked about Muppet Vision a few weeks ago, and I made this point. I said one of the great things about all the really great Muppet productions, there's a rewatchability to it. It's very funny the first time you watch it, but if you obsessively watch it like I have 30, 40, 50 times, there's all these tiny little things that are slipped into the film, gags that you won't see the first time through. But you'll catch them on the fifth or sixth show and go, oh my gosh, that's how did I miss that? There's some really funny stuff in there.
Yeah, the more and I'd say that's definitely a quality of at least the original Muppet work.
Yeah.
That the more you watch it, the more you pick up on nuances and things in the background and other stuff. And
the more you get out of it.
That's kind of my argument out of the two new movies, why I like Most Wanted over just the Muppets. Because Most Wanted has some of that into it, where the more you watch it, you realize that there's just a bunch of other stuff going on in the movie or in the background or things here and things there that I don't feel the Muppet movie, not the original, but the more recent one with Amy Adams and all them, doesn't have that. It's just what you see is what it is.
Right.
And I remember sitting there in the theater expecting more out of it, seeing stuff in the background. And it's just like, okay, it's just presented. Here's the movie, just right in front of you. That's it. And it didn't grab me as much. I mean, the music's good in it. You like seeing everyone get, it's kind of getting the band back together type of feel, but it still felt to me not as much of a Muppet movie as Most Wanted. That felt like a Muppet movie because of just everything else that goes on in the backgrounds and whatnot. So that again, my argument. I keep on, I'm an apologist for that movie, and I will go down saying that I do like that movie, as many people will berate me for.
I won't berate you for that. I've got other reasons to berate you.
Oh, that's fine. You amongst others, but we won't go into that skeleton yet.
No.
So, as a traditional
style, watch a
style,
movie together.
Yes, let's watch a movie together.
Okay.
All right. We are both watching it on Disney Plus. We are started off at the 00 segment.
I'm 2 seconds ahead of you, but that's okay. Wait,
okay.
Hang on. Okay, I'm 00.
All right.
All right.
And everyone else who wants to join along, get your Disney Plus setup or DVRs or VCRs or
VHS,
Laserdisc, Betamax, whatever. And we'll be starting in 3, 2, 1. Press play.
Fire!
No, that's not fire. It's a streak of light.
Oh, it's a streak of light. Oh, so this is the Jim Henson Pictures logo from 1998, 99? 99, I think they did this.
Yeah,
I love it. I missed. There used to be a slightly longer version of this where the camera broke a little bit and you heard Animal off camera go, sorry. And we open right there with this great shot of Animal, sort of a parody of the MGM lion, which I love.
Yeah.
This is great. And as we talk about this, I want to sort of talk about a little history here, which is that we saw Lord Grade's name there, and a Jim Henson film. Lord Grade was the producer on the old Muppet Show. It's much told that Jim tried to sell the show around to CBS, NBC, ABC. They all turned it down. Jim was doing a TV special with Julie Andrews in London, which Lord Grade was producing. He saw Jim and he's like, "Who is this guy?" And they started talking about doing the Muppet Show, and that was how the Muppet Show started. As they got into year 2 or 3 of the Muppet Show, Jim had kind of conquered television. He'd been part of Sesame Street Sesame had been on the air for about 10 years. The Muppet Show had exploded and took over the world. And Jim was starting to talk about he really wanted to get into movies and do movies, and Lord Grade got wind of this, and he said, I hear you want to make a movie. And Jim said, yeah, I'd like to do, I've got a couple of things. I'd like to do a movie with the Muppets, and I'd really like to do a dark feature, sort of a dark creature film. And Lord Grade was very smart. He said, okay, I'll give you a deal. Gave him a deal for 2 Muppet movies and this dark fantasy film. And there was a real thought process here, which is that Jim would produce the first Muppet film, he would creatively produce it, and he would star in it, but he was not to direct it. Lord Grade was putting his money into this. He wanted a director who knew what he was doing. So you got Jim Frawley, who was worked on the Monkees TV series in the 1960s. And then the second movie, which is what we're seeing here, is the first movie that Jim directed, The Great Muppet Caper. And then once Jim had learned the ins and outs of making movies using things that were familiar to him, which were the Muppets, then he was able to go from The Great Muppet Caper on to doing The Dark Crystal. So it was a very, at least from Lord Grade's perspective, there was a sort of level up there.
Mm-hmm.
So
let me just interject a bit of Muppet trivia for people as well. This balloon here, which can sometimes and sometimes not be seen at the Disney Hollywood Studios above the Great Muppet Vision 3D.
And there was a what was I about to say? Oh, obviously Frank Oz has talked about doing that opening shot with the where they're in the balloon, and sometimes it's done in a studio. When you see the characters are sometimes hand puppets and they're close up and it's in a studio, and in the wide shots, it's literally you've got the hot air balloon with animatronic puppets in there. You've got Frank and Jim and Dave in a helicopter following along close by, doing the remote control, the animatronics. And then there's another couple of helicopters, which are there's Richard Hunt, who plays Scooter and Janice. But anyway, there's another couple helicopters with video cameras or with movie cameras.
Wait, Richard wasn't in his coveralls.
No, he wasn't in his coveralls. But Frank has talked about doing that opening shot, and he said it was like one of the more dangerous things that he was fairly convinced they were going to die. And then we'll talk later on. We'll talk about the one that Dave Goelz said, I thought we were all going to die on this, which is much later in the film. But this is a wonderful opening number. I love this number.
Fantastic. I always thought it was interesting that none of the cars have windshields.
And all the music here is by Joe Raposo. Oh, keep your eye out on this guy here, this clever character, Charles Grodin, who recently passed. But all the music here is written by Joe Raposo, who wrote Being Green and the Sesame Street theme song, and hundreds sing tons of songs for Sesame Street, and then supplied all the music here for the Great Muppet Caper. And this is one of my favorite soundtracks too. You know, Jim had a real ear for music, and he had a great sense for. You look at the composers that he worked with: Paul Williams, Jeff Moss, Joe Raposo. Just all enhanced the spirit of these characters.
Yeah.
Here we go. And the monsters driving the car. I love that. And this great opening. There are a few Muppeteer cameos in this, as there are in a lot of the early Muppet films. Mm-hmm. We saw Richard Hunt driving the car, and in just a minute, if you look really quickly, you're gonna see Frank Oz sort of slipped into this film. This is a great scene here.
Yeah, every time he bangs his fist, they'll jump up.
What else can we say about this? See, I feel I'm sorry. This is horrible. This is one of my favorite movies, so I'm not really talking to you. I'm just kind of watching the film.
You're enjoying it.
Jewel has the Express.
The thing is, Jewel.
What's that?
I was going to say the funny thing is that the Jewel heist is supposed to take place in London, but all the license plates were for New York.
I had never noticed that. No, that's the thing. No, it doesn't. They never say it takes place in London. It just says the fashion queen of London robbed.
Nah.
This is actually in. So yes, they are in New York. Although that doesn't look anything. That set they were on didn't look anything like New York. But they're in the United States now, talking to talking to him, and then they fly to London later on. So the New York license plates make sense, kind of.
Okay.
Gonzo hanging from. This is a great. But I want to talk about this first. This is so nonsensical. There is no part of this that makes sense. But
What's the hat on?
But I love this bit here where he pulls out. I mean, this is devotion to a gag. When he pulls out their this picture here. Look at that. They had the workshop build that. This puppet was never used for anything. I don't think it's actually a puppet. It's probably just a standee. The resources and time and materials to just building that thing for this gag. I mean, they probably didn't have to pattern it much. You just had to dye Fozzie Bear's. You just had to use a Fozzie Bear puppet, Fozzie Bear pattern, and then dye the fur to match Kermit. But still, that's the resources and time it took just to do that gag.
And they threw the collar on, too.
Yeah. And then I love just the flash on Gonzo's camera. This kind of attention to detail is just great. But we're coming to... Frank is going to show up in just a second here. Just any minute now. Yeah, right, hat, okay. And he goes in, and we cut to Gonzo, and just this gentleman here to the left in the blue shirt, that's Frank Oz with a wig.
I was gonna say that's not his hairstyle.
No, he's got a cheap wig on there, but that is Frank Oz there. Slipped into the movie, and we'll see Jim Henson and Jerry Nelson much later in the film. Jerry, you can't miss. Jim's pretty obvious too. Richard and Frank are the two that are really snuck in. I love this gag here, Frog Bear, and this is the kind of thing that you might not get on the first viewing, where they're in the and there's Fozzie and his says Bear, and then the second Kermit will turn his light on, and you can see that his box is clearly marked Frog. Oh. There it is, and then we'll cut to Gonzo, and Gonzo's box is marked whatever. I mean, this kind of stuff.
And not only is it marked whatever, he actually has a television.
Yeah, right. This gag here, throwing him at the... It's an odd film because it's where the Muppet movie just had tons and tons of cameo guests. There are cameos in this, but they're all these... largely, you're going to see Robert Morley in a second, who was a well-known British character actor, but he was much bigger in London than he was here. We just had, I'm blanking on the other, there's Robert Morley. And who was the guy we just saw? The Mr. Tarkanian was somebody. Jack, I'm blanking on his last name. But he was an American character actor who's done a lot of stuff. I know he was in While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock and Bill Pullman, but I can't remember. Jack something.
Well, of course, you have a lot of London people or English actors or British, because most of Jim's work was done in
England, yeah. And here, and this is a trick that the Muppets used frequently, where it's the close-up hand puppet, and then the wide shot animatronics.
This one you can't configure because Kermit's movements are a little.
Yeah. And that was a trick that Jim had a similar trick that he had used years before in when he did the Muppet Musicians of Bremen. There were 4 villains. And they were costume characters, and in wide shots they'd be costumes, and then you'd do close-ups, and it would be a hand puppet you'd just have the head of the character, and it would be a hand puppet. There's one beautiful shots of London here in the big red bus, and I love this score. Da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da. Wonderful. And I'm a lot of stuff here. I'm sure a lot of this is just Jim and Frank and Dave riffing, particularly Jim and Frank were so good at this kind of just this interplay that's nothing. I mean, it's so silly. It's so off the cuff.
Again, we're going to start sketching the running gag.
Yeah. Toss them out.
It just throws them out. That Kermit's hat or part of the camera that broke?
Kermit's hat, I think. Cheapside. And we see the bus. The
city.
But this is just... I love this. I just love this.
This is a great number coming up.
And I think one of the reasons I love this film so much is that, like, there are so many characters who you don't typically see in Muppet productions, like Pops. This is such a great character. I loved Pops. He was introduced in the 5th season of the Muppet Show as a new way to open the show. Somebody's checking in. Bang, there we go. Great music. Pops was brought in as a new way to...
You know, I always thought that one looked like Jim, that one puppet there.
Oh, yeah. Jim usually puppeteered that character. What was I saying? Pops, rather than you'd always have Scooter knocking at the dressing room door, and this was the guest star coming into the theater, and Pops would greet them, and there'd be a little bit of business. He was very rarely used. I think he only had one. He showed up a couple of times on the show. Outside of that, it was always a character. Like it's such a fantastic puppet. It's such a fantastic puppet, and Jerry has such a great character here. There's Gaffer, the cat. For those of you who are wondering, the cat does have a name. It's Gaffer. So this is one of the few films you really see Pops in. This is really kind of, again, Rizzo was the 5th season of the Muppet Show, and this is really his kind of breakout role. And just all these other characters. There's Rolf, and that's the one movie where the characters just, to me, the characters just look at that. This fantastic puppetry there. I still don't know how they did that. There's Floyd, Bunsen and Beaker, and the chef. There's the jug band, Zoot, Annie Sue, New Zealand. Yeah. Just to have all of these characters. I mean, Rizzo's just a simple little rod puppet at that point. Whoop, coming in.
That's basically before Leslie took her over.
Leslie had a different character.
Okay.
And, Louise Gold always played Annie Sue. Leslie played Spamela Hamderson.
That's it.
On Muppets Tonight. And there goes Lips. I think this is like one of the few film appearances of Lips. And actually, not only is it one of the few film appearances of Lips, if you're really eagle-eared, you don't even see him, but eagle-eared later on in the film, it's the only speaking line that Lips has in any production.
What? He's singing here.
He doesn't really sing. He sings as part of the group, but later on, he actually does have like one line. If you're listening for it, that's such a beautiful puppet. And the characters, just for me, they look the best, and they just seem the most real to me here. I mean, in this film, Well,
they got one movie under their belt, and they're able to cut loose a little bit more in this.
Yeah, but they, they're in this movie. They're driving cars. They're riding bicycles. I'll give you an ultimate example of that a little later on. Just
climbing sides of buildings.
They're climbing buildings. I mean, they're in hot air balloons. They're swimming. I mean, there's just so much going on. And then I always love these sort of crowd shots where you have all the characters here. And here comes the band coming over. This to me is like the ultimate Muppet number. This is the most Muppety number in any Muppet movie. It's the most Muppety song. It's so great about how
swap out all the eyes.
It's this whole song, this idea that like things are okay even as they're falling apart, which is just such a sort of Muppety theme to me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we put a hat on Rizzo so that we can distinguish him from the others, which I believe was actually built by Melissa Whitmire, built by Steve's wife, because the character it was a puppet that was a puppet that was left over from the production I was talking about before, Muppets Musicians of Bremen. Don Saline had built all of these rat puppets, and they had these rat puppets around. And Steve picked one out that he really liked and started doing stuff in the background of the Muppet Show with it, just to sort of get laughs and get attention. And his wife started making clothes for the puppet, and the next thing they know, they had a character. So I think this is probably the first time that Rizzo is referred to as Rizzo the Rat. I don't remember if they ever actually mentioned Rizzo in the Muppet Show by name in the Muppet Show itself, but
I'll have to go back to that season and check it out. I don't
It's
remember
the 50s he appears, but I think he's really kind of at that point, just kind of. This is another scene where if you watch what she's doing, listen to what she's saying, just dragging there are no Muppets in this, and so you'd think it's kind of dull, but pay attention. There's some great comedy going on in here. Some of her comments
towards
about
the fashion, where she's just throwing ink on a dress and everyone's loving it.
And everybody applauds it, yeah.
Just cuts the model's hair.
Yeah, right, because the model's hair will have something to do with the dress. Right. And there's a very subtle thing here where she refers to she says the model looks like a turkey. In a little bit, Gonzo's going to get off the elevator and he takes one look at the model and goes, "Ooh, hubba hubba." Yeah, like it's a very subtle throwback to Gonzo's obsession with chickens. Yeah. And this to me, there was a thing recently on the internet. Somebody had asked, what's your favorite Miss Piggy look or style? And for me, it was this. This is just, again, the puppets look so good. Look at that. It's a fantastic suit.
You're drooling over the felt again.
I know. Well, no, I'm not drooling over the felt. I'm admiring the costume design. This is all, I think, Polly Smith's doing. Polly Smith did most of the costume design. This is a great subtle gag here where she's modeling, but if you look at every page, I was in high school. I'd watched this movie so many. It's the same pose. It's the same pose every time, no matter what she says.
The same facial.
I had watched this film probably about 100 times before I finally got that gag. That's how sad I am. It's like I will accept nothing less. I can offer you a job as a receptionist, and she freaks out. And I can take shorthand.
Sister Vale.
Diana Rigg is fantastic here. What I love about this, I mean, Diana Rigg's performance here is so good because she's doing some she's fantastic. What she's doing here is fantastic because she's doing comedy material. She's got really good comedy lines. She doesn't deliver one line as a comedic line. She plays it completely straight. This whole character's thought process. She doesn't try to one-up. She doesn't try to upstage the Muppets at all. She lets them have their movie. She lets this be their movie. She is a supporting player to them.
And she does her character, and she delivers it with such a
why are you telling me
face.
I love this. Why are you telling me all this? It's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere. Is so matter-of-factly done. She doesn't even for that line, she doesn't break character, even though she's breaking the fourth wall.
And she's not trying to sell to the audience. She's just putting it out there.
I know. This is just fantastic comedic performance without being a comedic performance. And really one of my favorite actors to watch against the Muppets. Although she's I think she only ever interacts with Piggy. I mean, it's great. It's great that she doesn't overact it. Nowadays, you put a comedian, this is, here we go, Gonzo's. Oh, it's actually the one who looks like an ostrich. But to sort of to go back to what you were saying earlier about Muppets Most Wanted, I mean, you've got comedic actors like Tina Fey or Ricky Gervais, and while I like both of them, they're comedic actors playing comedy. Right. They try to get the laugh instead of letting the Muppets. Michael Caine was great because he openly said, I'm not treating this any differently. I am going to treat this. I am part of a repertoire company. You guys are the best repertoire company of all time. I'm just going to play this as Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm not going to play it for laughs, and that's why Michael Caine is so good. Tim Curry in Treasure Island is a little bit different because that's Tim Curry. But he also walks a fine line. He doesn't upstage them. He just goes in and gives a very Tim Curry performance. Tim Curry's so dynamic. But this is great. What do you think about the drips? And I love this.
The look on her face, that pulled in snout.
Yeah. This is just... and then the classic 1930s kind of stars in their eyes.
Oh, it's you.
Stars in their eyes, and the here we go. There's the stars in their eyes. Twinkle in the eye, and then the birds. This is great. This is all just fantastic. Sort of 1950s musical tropes that they're.
Quite graceful.
Right. You love Kermit. That's a nice fall, quite graceful. Kermit, if nothing else, is charming.
Yes.
And Piggy wheels this into a date with Kermit. This is great.
Only Piggy would be able to manipulate this.
It's funny. I'm sitting here thinking about things. I'm like, oh, I gotta wait. When we get to this scene, I want to talk about that. And when we get to this scene, I want to talk about, because there's so much in this film that I love. Jim and Frank are just so good here. I mean, everything they do. This, I really do hope people who are listening to this are watching the movie along. Otherwise, this really does just become a podcast. Two guys watching a movie.
That's kind of the point. That's kind of, I think we've gone to, that you gotta watch along.
This is great. This stuff where he's, what's funny is what's great is this is sort of a mentalist thing to do where you're sort of, yes, that is the answer. You sort of force people to, I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 3. 2. Yes, exactly. That kind of is Highbrow Street somewhere. But even the name there, Highbrow Street, it's such a gag name.
Yeah.
That you just use it,
Highbrow, of course.
Nothing. It's just highbrows, Look at it, Kermit kind of doughy-eyed a little bit. The doorman puts Gonzo's nose back
into place. Oh yeah, he's been riding the elevator with it.
Yeah. Well, there's another example. Just the term determination. I mean, Gonzo puppets. It's that nose. Gonzo is one of the harder puppets for them to make, and particularly because of the nose. That's carved
I like this part.
And
Gonzo
yet,
get a taxi, and of course, what taxi would it be?
Beauregard. And look at the license plate here when you cut to the close up of Gonzo. Bo 676. Bo's name is on the taxi. But I was talking about there's a 30-second shot there where Gonzo pulls his nose out of the elevator. That's a puppet you've got to they built a special Gonzo puppet for that gag. I mean, again, it's just that sort of devotion to, spending your resources on that. This whole, this is another one of those segments. I wonder how much is written and how much is Jim, Frank, and Dave. And sometimes here. Now, didn't Mike Quinn say? Isn't he in the back seat of this? Isn't he? I thought he talked about this with us.
Yeah, he talked about. I want to try. Is it this part or another taxi part? But yeah, he's the one in the back on these wide shots. He's got
Gonzo, I think. And then there's for these wide shots here. There's actually a stunt driver wearing a Beauregard mask.
Yep.
And this
Mike's
was
in the back. Moving taking care of the puppet work of the three in the back.
And for a while, the taxi cab was in. Was it Muppets? It was in the queue for the Great. No, not the Great Movie Ride. What's the other? What was the behind the stage studio tour when they used to have that?
Yes.
You could the taxi cab was there. I remember my wife
in the boneyard.
Yeah, my wife and I were waiting in line for that back in 2000. We were on vacation in Disney World. And, man, you could have just about scraped me off the floor when we turned the corner and saw Bo's taxi. We had to look in. You saw the seats were removed. There was cardboard on the floor. Right.
I always love Beauregard. It's just like, oh, okay.
It's such a fan. Bo is one of my favorite puppets. He's a great character, but he's just my favorite puppets. Dave's manipulation here, that eyebrow mechanism, the thinking that goes that. You can see Bo thinking.
Well in the soup, in the pasta. And Pop's line.
Steering wheel souffle. And I like the fact they said steering wheel souffle again.
Again. Because it's not the first time it's happened.
Don't tell everybody Kermit's got a date with Lady Holiday. Yeah,
what magazine is that Janice is reading? Oh, I didn't even realize Chef has a tread mark across
tread mark on the. Well, even as the car goes through, you can see all sorts of stuff going on in the kitchen. All the great characters here. It won't go outside this room. And there's the news. I mean, this is the only movie where the newsman has a line. It's the only movie where Louis Kazagger has a line. Gonzo taking pictures of the pigeons.
Again, no glass in the window.
Yeah, again, the characters are so real to me. Kermit's shaving. And they even make a gag about the fact that I wish I had whiskers. Of course, then I'd have to use a blade. A frog doesn't need to shave. Frogs don't have facial hair.
Fozzie getting all.
Jim and Kermit are so good here. And then Frank's performance, just so heartbreaking when he realizes that he's, he's going to leave me behind.
Yeah.
I have to use a blade. One of my favorite. I will anytime I have to get dandied up for something and I've got to shave, I'll start singing this song because it's a great song.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of those numbers where the characters become very. I mean, look at Kermit adjusts his tie, not very effectively, but he shaves it the scene, and then watch some of the stuff that he does. This is where I say the characters for me are just the most real.
Well, I don't want to step back right before the song starts, and Fozzie's looking at Kermit, and he takes the towel and wipes the rest of the
rest of it off the
foam
face.
off of him. And just the way that he does it.
But then look at this. This is such a great effect. Look at this. We're putting the pants on.
One leg at a time. There we go.
Oh, this is fantastic. And then this gag with Gonzo turning his legs. We've seen Kermit naked Gonzo. And then he zips his fly up. I mean, this is just fantastic. And this full body shot. Look at this. How are they doing this? He's just totally there, off on his own. I don't know if he's.
Flies across.
I mean, this is fantastic puppetry here. This character is just, Kermit totally exists and is real here. And then he tap dances, and this was a favorite Jim Henson thing to do. Kermit tap dancing, but you never see his feet.
Yeah.
Was they employed? I think the Happy Feet was the first time they did that, but Jim loved that gag. Jim loved the idea of Kermit tap dancing, and you never see his feet.
And they throw up the shadow.
This bit here with the shadow, this is fantastic. Amazing puppetry. And then you can see Gonzo's reflection in the mirror there. Nothing here is wasted. Boom! Look at that.
At no point does he change the bulb in his camera.
Well, you never see him change the bulb on his camera. But, that's what my dreams come true. And then this is just so Fred Astaire here, the three together. Yeah. This is straight out of Robin and the Seven Hoods.
There's a chamber pot in the back.
Which one are you?
Which one are you? Or one's in a suit.
I am not entirely unconvinced that that's not Frank Oz ad-libbing. But and then his reactions all here, the hurt and the pain. Oh, there's that sign. I go back and read that sign. There's something funny on that sign.
I meant to.
I can't remember what it is. The Highbrow Street says something funny too. There's a whole bunch of. I'm on
this is what I need to happen on my bigger screen TV.
Yeah, I'm watching this on my cell phone, so I can't see all the signs and stuff. But I'm gonna turn the show over to you in a minute because I'm gonna let you talk about one of your favorite British TV shows, and I think you know why.
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
2 cameos.
The double header, because you got one of probably the biggest comedian in British history. Here we go, John Cleese, great John Cleese,
and I don't remember her name. I remember the part she played. I don't remember the actress's name.
Well, let's talk about John Cleese, who's famous for Monty Python, and what was that other thing that he did? What was that other show he was on?
I don't know. There was always something faulty about it.
Yeah, I'm feeding you here. Go ahead and show off a little bit. Just John Cleese, Monty Python, and
Fawlty Towers.
Fawlty Towers, and his wife here is. We can't remember the actress's name because we're terrible at our jobs, but what do we know her from?
Fawlty Towers.
Fawlty Towers. Probably one of the funniest episodes of Fawlty Towers, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
She plays
he beat that character up to no end. So that's season. I think that was season 1.
And they had done Fawlty Towers together at this point. They knew each other, right?
Yes, this would be because Fawlty Towers was 75. No, she was season 2. So she would have been season 2, February 19th, 1979. So 2 years beforehand.
Yeah.
The episode Communication Problems.
Right. What's the we're both going for it. What's her name?
Joan Sanderson.
Yes, there we go. I knew it.
Mrs. Alice Richards in Fawlty Towers.
And this whole exchange between them is so great. I mean, all this stuff about how boring their lives are.
Because they have so much.
Yeah. And again, this is how good John Cleese is. This is John Cleese, who's one of those brilliant British comedians ever. I mean, probably the number one. And he again he's not playing this for comedy. He's done so much funny stuff to do here, and he just plays it completely straight. just as stuffy as he possibly can. He knows exactly how to be funny in this by not being funny. The less funny he is, the funnier the scene is. He's so good at this.
He's completely mocking British aristocracy.
If I were bored, I'd go out and buy something. A jar of Carl's Foot jelly. I'd like to come with you and help you pick one out. How bored she is. No need for that. The weather's been terrible.
And she doesn't react. It's just like,
that's great. Yes. This is, I mean, just look at this. Oh my gosh. And they're totally, and the fact that he's
doorbell rings.
They're so bored with each other. They're not even listening to each other.
They don't even realize that the doorbell.
What to do? The doorbell rings.
Well, what do you do if the doorbell rings?
It's the doorbell. That's it. He doesn't even. We skipped over, but he doesn't even react to the fact that they talk about how boring their lives are, and then you have said there's a pig climbing up the outside of the house. I mean, just totally ignoring that.
Well, the butler gave the butler a day off. He's still sitting there.
You know? This is great.
And Piggy's just sitting there behind it.
Well, so the pets are dead. No, the pets are dead. The butler's been discharged. This is fantastic. I thought you said the pets were dead. It's great. This is fantastic. Oh gosh. One of my favorite scenes in the film, and then again is, when I was 4 years old watching this, the fact that was funny never entered into my head, and it wasn't until I got much older and aware of things. I'm like, you really start paying attention to everything that's going on there.
And you see John getting up, walking over. He doesn't look at them at first.
Yeah. And this is great. I'm sure a lot of this is Frank just riffing and pulling Jim. And this is just John. I mean, John's so good. He's just a master of his craft.
He gets the fire poker.
Using his craft to his physicality, his height.
He looks at all the places that they're not.
But this is the great thing, is the characters are so low and John is so tall that he really does have to do this technique, and he uses it. I mean, he just uses it to great comedic advantage.
And get to be a proper gentleman.
Oh, this is fantastic stuff here. Wonderful.
This is out of Faulty Towers too.
What's this? Thank you, Jeeves.
Look at the close.
Pig. Well, there's climbing up the outside of the house. Yeah, that's the chap. He's just in there with the lizard. There was. Well, that's more of a supper club. Oh gosh.
But that's also a bit out of I think out of Faulty Towers too, where there was the restaurant exchange. Well, they got the this and that, but that's more of a supper club.
But you get.
I wonder how much of that was also Cleese ad-libbing.
Lips has a line here. How about a little? He says, "How about a little traveling music?" as they get started. Yeah, there you go. If you were listening, there's Lips's only line ever spoken.
And I talked right over it.
Yeah, we did. But and now we'll throw back to an episode of the Disney Marvels podcast. This is the first puppetry work of Mike Quinn, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Everybody
on the bus.
Everybody on the bus. No, maybe that was the thing. Was it Maybe this is where he's in the... No. He told us where he was.
Did. I remember him talking about the taxi.
Yeah. Is he in the taxi here? I thought he was in the bus.
I think he did the bus as well. He was involved in a number of bit parts. But I remember him talking about how, being involved in the taxi ride and how that all transpired.
Yeah, I think he's in the taxi in the main scene. And I think here he told us who he is here, but I don't remember who he is.
Well, for anyone who's interested, go back to episode 85, Conversations with Mike Quinn, and you can hear his whole story about this fantastic movie there.
Right. Oh no, because the taxi isn't following, although the taxi follows them later on in the film. So yeah, he's in the
bus.
Yeah, the taxi, they take the bus and the taxi to the Mallory Gallery later. Look how great the characters look there.
After, of course, the gag of the name of the restaurant Cleese mentioned.
The Dubonnet Club. Classy place like this, you'd think they have pretzels on the table. This is... Gonzo and Fozzie is their third wheel. The menu, the prices on the menu. And Gonzo's going to pay for it. This is fantastic. And we do have a Muppet performer cameo here coming up. There he is, Jim Henson, and there's Callista Hendrickson, who was head of the London workshop at the time. But there's the film's director, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Actually, it's an interesting fun fact is that in all three of the original Jim Henson Muppet movies, in the original Muppet movie, in the Great Muppet Caper, and in the Muppets Take Manhattan, all three directors appear in the film. Jim Frawley is a waiter at the El Slizo Cafe in the first movie. Jim's here in the Dubonnet Club, and Frank is a executive for Ocean Breeze Soap during the montage where they're out searching for Kermit. So, and here is the appearance of Charles Grodin as Nikki Holiday, who we recently lost.
Yep.
I think this guy's a relatively well-known British comedic actor as well. Not like well, but like a character actor. I think he's got like a bit parts in a bunch of things, maybe. Because I feel like I've seen him in other things.
I'm sure we have.
This is great. You gotta remember, you're watching these two puppets dance, and you gotta think there's two grown men underneath there making this happen, and you've got all these dancers around trying not to fall in a pit on the floor.
Here's a line that you use often.
Do I use this one?
Yeah.
Put enough sugar in it, it's just like ginger ale. I think I have said that. But it's also one of my favorite lines.
Now, were they using the scooters then, or are they just laying on the ground?
I don't know. I believe there is a hole in the ground for them.
That's an elevated set.
I believe it's an elevated set, and they're in the floor. I believe. And Charles Grodin's playing it a little big here, but that's good. And of course, we've the gross of colored flowered socks, which we established earlier. He's playing it a little big, but that's okay because he's the film's villain.
Yeah.
And notice the license plate here, which is Nikki 4, because it's obviously the bad guys.
Yep. And it's the 4 of them.
Right.
Three
models and Charles Grodin. Oh, that's interesting. The guy whose wife isn't feeling very well is actually now having dinner with somebody else.
He was dancing, I think, with somebody else, too.
Really? See, that makes me appreciate that character even more.
I think it was the same guy. It had very similar facial features.
He was definitely eating dinner with somebody else there. This is a beautiful song. I love this song. There's a line later on where he says the first time it happens, no, I can't remember which line it is. No magical change, no. Just there's a sign where so the first time it happens, so simple, so rare, and just when you thought you'd forgot how to care, and though you feel much more than you dare to know, the first time it happens, you know. Such a beautiful sentiment, such a beautiful lyric. Straight out of Joe Raposo. I mean, and this is my one complaint about the film, which I've only sort of recently become aware of watching it with my son, is that right about here, the film does, particularly musically, the film kind of slows down a little bit. You've got a slow musical number, which is this, followed by another slow musical number. I mean, this picks up in a minute, but this is really kind of slow here. And then your next musical number is the bicycle scene, which is beautiful to look at and amazing and a technical wonder.
But everyone feels like Fozzie.
It's a very slow musical number, and then you've got the underwater ballet, which again is a technical achievement and beautiful to look at, but it's a very slow musical number, and I wouldn't cut any one of these numbers, and yet one of these numbers, particularly either the bicycles or the underwater ballet, needs to be a bit more. You need something up tempo there, because the film, while I love it, it slows down, and when I tried to introduce this movie to my son twice now, I'd get to right about the bicycle scene and I'd lose him. He couldn't sit through it. But
well, a number of movies, I think, from that time period have a similar segments to them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a product of its time in that aspect.
Bit of a hand. I mean, the puppetry here is just what Frank's got to do. If you watch that, this stuff here, the handoffs here from one to the next to the next to the next. Yeah, Frank is definitely standing up at this point, because there's no way you're doing this on a cart. And right into the arms of our villain. Oh, I just noticed his shirt matches his socks.
Oh yeah.
That's how tacky Nikki Holiday is. And then this is great, the tap dance. I love this transition here with this wide shot. Again, it just all in the service of making the characters appear real. Boom. And then you've got...
But you don't actually, again, now you're seeing...
Hey, well, there you go. I mean, you've got what is clearly... You do a transition there that's so seamless and so flawless, from Frank puppeteering to what is obviously a tap dancer in Miss Piggy legs, but you do that transition so flawlessly that just adds to the believability of this character. And again, the costume here, Piggy looks just fantastic.
And I hate to be the guy who had to jump over.
I think that every time I watch this movie, these two guys who are doing flips. Yeah, you're right. And the one who flips directly over here. Look at that. Boom, big musical number. This is great stuff. Oh, and now the villains are going to be villainous. Ooh, there goes, and the handoff, the picture, plot point.
Expose.
She screamed right into my ear. What do you want me to do? I spelled ketchup on my cummerbund. Which... and the realization that Miss Piggy is not Lady Holiday. And we go into another one of my favorite scenes, but again, this is, you're talking about sort of very quiet comedy, that stuff with John Cleese and Joan Sanderson is all very, very funny, but it's very slow, subtle comedy. It's not big, pie-in-your-face kind of comedy. And you get another scene.
The Cinderella moment.
And you get the Cinderella moment. And now we get to this scene in the where they're developing the pictures. Look at this, Piggy walking down the street, so that you just totally believe in these characters. Anything that just, this is all very funny, but this is very, like I say, it's not high energy comedy. It's very slow. This scene on its own is hysterically funny. This scene strung with 2 or 3 other similar, very slow, character comedy bits. The film does drag a little bit.
It's not the fastest pace.
No. I mean, and yet it's still one of my favorite Muppet films. Because this whole conversation between the 3 of them, I mean, just Jim, Frank, and Dave all at the top of their game. I actually love this. I don't know how they did this where Gonzo is, again, if you stop and think about Gonzo, well, we missed it, but he puts the thing in there. He doesn't have control rods. How are you doing that? I mean, that's not easy to do with a puppet.
No.
There's a real exactness to what Dave was just doing. There's a rubber ducky in a bathtub. Yeah. You can't rock this stuff here you can't pat your head and rub your stomach at the same time. This is all very silly. And the Muppets beating down the door outside. They've got their hands in the cookie jar. Oh man, the characters come.
Everyone comes in, lets the light in. Of course, this would be lost on most people nowadays.
Right.
About developing film and exposing it to light. And
our 4th and final puppeteer cameo coming along, Jerry Nelson and his daughter Christine. There's famous of Pops, New Zealand, Floyd Pepper, his daughter Christine, who passed shortly after the film was made. She was quite sick, and I know that having her there was very special to Jerry to be able to do that film with her and to have that moment with her. And an uncredited Peter Falk, who we all know as Columbo, and another thing.
And a Columbo type character.
Yeah. And, again, like this stuff that he comes up with is so funny by being so disconnected to anything, but it's such a slow scene, It's Peter Falk kind of riffing on the story of this glass slipper, and it's all very funny stuff on its own, but when strung together with slow musical number, slow scene in the developing the film, another slow scene in the park, followed by another slow musical number, But I love all this stuff about you and your brother, Lord Bernie. And of course, anytime you hear Bernie mentioned in a Muppet production, it's a reference to Bernie Brillstein, Jim's manager. It was a name they went to frequently for comedic purposes. Everybody in the Muppet universe is named Bernie, or anybody of insignificance is usually named Bernie.
Got Bernie in it.
Yeah, they use Bernie as a name fairly regularly. Piggy particularly, anytime Piggy had to talk to an agent, it's always Bernie.
Yes. Yeah. Was it enough? Family Christmas, was it Bernie as well?
I think there's a Bernie somewhere in there. There's a Jerome, which is
Jerome's
the Jerome is the
driver.
is the driver, is the limo
Is the
driver.
chauffeur,
Jerome got
limo
the limo
driver.
stuck in the car wash. And I think that's specifically a reference to Jerry Jewell, actually, is Jerome. Maybe. I feel like there is a Bernie mentioned in Muppet Family Christmas, but I can't remember where. But I know Bernie the agent Bernie's the agent in the first Muppet movie. Dom DeLuise plays Bernie, and I think later on Miss Piggy refers to is talking to her agent. Yeah, Bernie, what do you got?
Yep.
God, just look how well Piggy is dressed in this film, and this is now on her third hairstyle. And this is so 1930s, so Casablanca here.
Yeah. The Wranglers must have had a great time with having to keep her in.
She just looks fantastic. The costume design on this film, particularly the costume design on Piggy.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
So between the three scenes that we've seen her in now, with the three major different costume changes, are they three different builds, or are they the same build and just
this will be a different build because this is a different hairstyle. I'm sure. I mean, when they were doing a film, they built so many Piggy puppets. Most likely they're three different builds, but you can also change costumes relatively easy on a character. This is definitely a different puppet because it's a different hairstyle. This is This is probably one of my favorite Jim and Frank scenes ever. Look at this. The fight that you're about to see. I'm gonna shut up and you just enjoy this because this is Jim and Frank at their best. This is look at this.
He yells at the camera.
And you watch this and you wonder how much of that is scripted and how much of that is just Jim and Frank. And I'm sure a lot of it is just Jim and Frank being as good as they are. And then to turn it around and to play together. To play this wonderful scene. Frank's fantastic here. Frank is fantastic here. Jim's very good too, but Frank really just switches and plays these emotions so well. I mean, despite Kermit's joke there, which is very funny, Frank playing those emotions he really does play 500 different emotions, and he does play every one of them right. So is this where I ruin the film and talk to people? My mother once asked me about this scene. She said, "How did they do this?" And I warned her. I said, "I can tell you how they did this, but I can't untell you how they did this. So exactly. I can ruin the magic here, or you can spend the rest of your life living in wonder." And she agreed to. She asked me not to tell her. She would rather live her life with the magic. Having said that, what do you think? Should I ruin this? Should we talk about this? There's a lot of stuff going on here.
There's a lot going on. And I'm kind of on that cusp myself because I know how they did some of this myself, and I'm also one to never to ruin the magic so much. Maybe we could we could do it this way, because I keep promising people that if they join the Patreon group, we're going to start putting some special podcasts on there.
You want to do a special Patreon thing where I ruin people's childhoods?
Yes. And they it's part of the subscription. That's Saturn Wardorf's cameo.
Yep. Pay us money or Matt Leonard will ruin your childhood.
Help keep the show going and we'll ruin your dreams and hopes.
Oh, I'm fine to that. So donate to the Patreon, and maybe I'll come back and we'll talk about this scene and how this scene is done, and I'll ruin Matt's childhood for him. But there's some. It's really, when you stop and you think about it, most of it you can kind of figure out on your own. And I mean, a lot of it is out there. You can find it pretty now in the age of Google. If you Google how they do the Muppets bicycles, you'll find somebody talking about it. Jim actually openly talked about how they did it in one of the specials. And this is great. Just all the characters. I love this. All the characters on bicycles. It's not just enough to do Kermit and Piggy. Just put and they look so good on bicycles. Look at this. This is great.
I do have to say, I feel bad for Brian. Was it Brian Henson? You can see
Brian. There he is in the green shirt. That's Brian Henson. Wow, I've never seen him. Wow, I never realized he was that close to the camera. But yeah, Brian Henson is there, making the whole thing work. That's just such a fantastic number. And now we start to get a bit more into the meat and bones of the storyline. Here we go. Don't chew gum. Really, and this is nice because now you really do see her in command, and Diana Rigg's character really kind of in command, and.
Well, and credit to Diana Rigg with everything that the type of characters that she plays. She's not known so much for her comedic acting.
Right.
And I think this is still pre Airplane, where they kind of discovered if we get straight actors and put them in a comedic role, we can actually do something with that.
Yeah. Sometimes it's funnier to watch, I sometimes prefer watching, I'll use Ghostbusters as an example, Harold Ramis is so funny because he's not trying to be funny, or, people who I don't think of necessarily as comedic actors are sometimes better at doing comedy than, somebody like Mike Myers or Ricky Gervais or people who are aware of the fact that they're doing comedy.
In case everyone's like, Diana Rigg, she sounds familiar. Yes, you know her from the Avengers, the British
series
spy show.
Not to be
Game of Thrones, of Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Was she in Game of Thrones?
Yes.
Really? See, I never watched Game of Thrones. That's how square I am.
Tyrell. She was in it for quite a while. And
again, these ugly ties and this colored flower
matching handkerchief
that they give to Charles.
And I'm sure the socks match too.
And the socks match too. This whole exchange about the Aqualung, I can see how that can make you sick to your stomach. This is great. Oh. I know. Oh.
The way he just plays up this character.
Yeah, he's good. He's good. Like I said, he's given a bit of a comedic performance. He's going a little large, but that's okay because he's not. Well, because he's not ever really in the scene with the Muppets. It's okay for him to go a little bit larger, But when you have an actor who's really overpowering the characters, you really want to watch something. And I think we've talked about this in the past. Statler and Waldorf again. I think we talked about this when we did the Muppet Show, where we talked about the Muppet movie a couple years ago. Watch the scene with Steve Martin in the Muppet movie where he's the waiter. And Steve Martin is known. He is a big comedic actor, and but watch how far Steve Martin is really pulling back there to not overpower Jim and Frank too much. And Jim and Frank also pulling back so that Steve Martin can get it's three men at the top of their game, all being very respectful of each other and who should have the focus and who should have the laugh and how do you get the biggest laugh out of that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes to watch in any of the Muppet movies. It's a brilliantly written scene, and it's a fantastically performed scene. Steve and Jim and Frank are fantastic in that.
Just sent you a picture of her from Game of Thrones.
All this stuff is very clearly directed at Miss Piggy. And look at Piggy's costume. Again, Piggy's costuming here, not too flashy. She's just the assistant.
And that hair, just messed up hair. It's like very typical Piggy.
She drops the model. Gonzo with the photographers. Waldorf, here come the bikinis. We better synchronize our...
Synchronize our pacemakers.
This is great. Oh.
The disgust on her Rig's face.
And this disgust with this the look of shock, and even Gonzo here. I love this putting Gonzo in this scene. And I always sort of wonder this moment here, how much of this is just in Piggy's head? How much of this is just her, the people jumping to their feet and applauding? This is really how Piggy sees the world at this point.
Because they don't really cut back and pull back for you to.
But this is great. This is great. All of this big Esther Williams fantasy here.
Big musical water number.
And now this is a thing. Oh my gosh, there's a lot going on here. They went through tons of because water and puppet heads do not go very well.
Nope.
Piggy is, as we talked about a few weeks ago with Rick Lyon, Piggy's head is flocked. There's a special process for that. They went through so many tests to try and get a Piggy head that wouldn't crumble. And I think it's something like 85 different, because the chemicals on the water were so bad here that it would you'd have a couple minutes to film at best before Piggy just deteriorated. And I don't remember what the final number is, but it's a ridiculous number of heads that they went through to do this. And you've got Frank. Frank ended up with an ear infection, actually, because of this scene, filming underwater.
If you notice, her mouth is pretty much, so far, has always just been in that one same pose, just open.
All of this is so funny.
This is the first time her mouth has moved in this scene.
Poor Frank is underwater, and they can't give him a scuba tank because then the bubbles would interfere with the shot. So he's actually he's got a small air tank, a tube that he can breathe. They pull the tube out, he holds his breath, they yell action, they film the bit, they put the tube back in Frank's mouth, and he can breathe again when the scene is over. So this is a lot going on. And then Frank got an ear infection, too, for this wonderful scene.
And that's got to be filmed backwards.
Right. If you actually watch, you can see the way the water isn't running properly. And then this is actually a stunt double in a Piggy costume here. And of course, this is not Charles Grodin singing. Actually, toughpigs.com just did a whole thing where they went searching for, they found who is the singing voice here, because he's not credited. And I'm going to see if I can find that. It was recently that they did this. That's actually the stunt double.
I was going to say, yeah. Before it was a puppet, this is...
That's a stunt double. And she goes in and, see, now, because everybody's calm there, and they're shocked when she falls into the thing. So... let me see if I can find their... And he slips that in. The contact
lens joke is still on it.
It was recently they did this, where they discovered... Here we go. Who dubbed Nikki Holiday's song? And we're about to get to Piggy's famous line here. And Piggy realizes that here we go. Can't sing. Your voice is dubbed. Which, incidentally, was opera singer Stuart Kale was what they discovered. Tough Pigs uncovered that not too long ago, and they wrote a whole article about it on May 24th. So you can read about that if you head over to toughpigs.com.
Yes.
And a little shout out to our friends over there, because they have all sorts of wonderful Muppet articles, and anything you could ever begin to wonder about Muppets, they've covered it. They've actually uncovered a couple of Muppet mysteries over the years that normal people wouldn't care about, but Muppet fans have always wondered about. Gonzo's underneath.
It just happens to be under the table.
Photographic essay on kneecaps. This is a great scene. I mean, this is just all of the characters together. I love these shots where you have all the characters together, and you have all this nonsense and insanity taking place.
Gonzo's head almost is 180 degrees turned around.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it where the all crayon and Janice. But you have all sorts of chaos, and then Kermit sort of calling for everybody to quiet. And what color are their hands now?
Beauregard. I love Beauregard.
So I'll tell a quick story here, because we had the thing there with Janice, and I was years ago. I was working for a theater company, and we had gone out to lunch, and we started talking about Muppets and Muppet movies, and the character of Janice came up, and one of the girls, maybe 19, 20 at the time, and she was, oh my gosh, I love that character because she has this thing, and she quoted the line where here, where she says, "Look, mother, it's my life, okay, so if I went around the beach and walk around naked," and we all kind of laughed at that, and she goes, oh, and she does that in the Muppets Take Manhattan, too. What is it she says? And in the moment, neither she or I could remember the line, and the conversation went on a little bit, and in the middle of this diner in Chester, New Jersey, she suddenly remembered, and you know how you get a little loud when you get excited? She got excited, and she very loudly announced in the middle of this diner, "Look, buddy, I don't take my clothes off for anybody, even if it is artistic."
Yes.
And the other six actors all sitting around the table, and this girl all just sank and hid under the table. We're not with her. We got nothing. None of us have asked her to remove her clothes.
We have a disclaimer.
Oh, it's times like this I'm proud to be American. I know Floyd's got a great line in there too. He goes, "It'd be a lot of fun to go out there and risk our lives." Oh, and Fozzie. Yeah, again, Frank's so great in this role with Fozzie. You know, so heartfelt and so earnest. I love Fozzie. One of my favorite characters. And we go back to the guy here.
In the legs.
I always want to freeze frame this and see if I can figure out whose legs are whose. And the light bulb. And again, we have this is another scene where it's so funny on its own, but it's just another, at least you had the scene with all the characters there to break it up. But this scene coming up with Piggy and Kermit as with Kermit as the lawyer, you know, really, really, it's funny, but it's also kind of slow at the same time.
With the mustache.
No, with the fake mustache.
HM prison warning. Rosenthal.
Rosenthal. This is not the time for that kind of humor. That's just a great exchange. The head turn. They look to turn as if nobody's listening, and they got the guard standing right there.
The guards, yeah.
Rattles off the names, the different ways to call the. It's prison talk.
Yeah. That's what we all call it around here.
You can pull this off. It gives you an idea of exactly how layered this character is. You know, this wonderful layered performance that Frank developed, or layered character that Frank developed over the course of, by this point, 5 years, 4.5 years.
She's kissing her lawyer.
There's no explanation for this whatsoever. You're wearing my mustache. God. And then take to the camera. You got mish marks on your face. Oh. And if we look at, actually, it says on the door, irresponsible parasite, as Diana Rigg mentioned earlier in the film.
Yeah. That's his title.
That's his title. This is another one of my favorite scenes where they're all just standing around, and these four are so highly organized. And we come into this
with high-tech equipment.
Right, and then we cut to these idiots.
Holes in it.
This is fantastic. I love that there's an interaction coming up between Zoot and Dr. Teeth, and then Fozzie, and then Janice's reaction to it, which is so funny. And again,
one of my favorite bits is them coming up with the list.
Yeah. Oh, Piggy's about to. Pacing. Which one is it that you like? Here we go. This is great. Yeah, I don't have no other pants. The next thing on the list is Yo-Yo, for sure. And that was one of those things that as a kid, I didn't think much of it, but it was until like high school. I'm like, my God, that's a great gag.
Yeah.
We get for it, and we'll eat it. Sorry. Totally underprepared for what they're about to do. There go our heroes. And, of course...
And the light bulb.
This is great. And then we get Piggy.
Pacing.
But like we talked, there's so many gags there's so many things that you don't even think about what goes into making it, how do you do that? Obviously those aren't steel pipes.
Yeah.
But that's an amazing effect that you don't stop and think about, because just that's how believable the characters are at this point. You just sell the characters. And that's one of the reasons why I love this movie. As I've said several times, just the little things that you do. Gonzo developing the film and Kermit putting his pants on and Piggy bending the bars. It's just all these little things.
Now the cars have windshields. And proper British plates. Mallory Gallery.
Well, they're now in Britain, or they're now in England.
It always hooked perfectly the first time.
Always in these movies. Her Majesty's Prison. And then I love this on the side of if you read the side of the bus as it goes by, the van as it goes by, Big House Laundry.
BHL.
One Starch Street.
It was a lost opportunity. They should have brought that back into Most Wanted.
One Starch Street. That's not a joke you're gonna, unless you're watching this movie for the first time with us. And the sign here says, Mallory Gallery, don't try it, you'll be torn to shreds. All of these little things in this film. I love this. And then they're disguised. Their disguises are Groucho Marx glasses. This is great. This is all fantastic comedy.
I have a glass. I have one of the glasses of this from McDonald's.
And they're all yeah. The old the all lined with lead.
Yeah.
The McDonald's glasses. I have one. I had them all as a kid, so I'm sure I've got lead poisoning, which explains a lot. And then somebody gave me one, picked one up at like a tag sale and gave it to me. So I've got, I don't remember which one I have. I think I have them all on bicycles somewhere around.
I have the one of Miss Piggy jumping through the window.
Here's the paper towels.
Hot mustard.
I think the one with Piggy on the motorcycle. I think that's also got the Muppet bus on it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, see, I gotta track that one down because that was I had that as a kid and I loved that glass. I loved that glass because it was like one of the few Muppet products that actually had Pops on it. And you never find, there's so little Muppet merchandise with Pops, and Pops was one of my favorite characters. It still is one of my favorite characters. I think Lips might be on that too. Oh, and here's the great Peter Ustinov, who was actually a guest on the Muppet Show. I think he was a first season. Yeah, he was a first season guest on the Muppet Show. And of course, one of our favorite movies that you and I have talked about hundreds of times. You know which one?
That Ustinov is in?
Peter Ustinov is in one of our favorite movies together. Or is in one of our favorite movies. It's one you and I have talked about hundreds of times. I think we've even talked about it on this show.
I'm sure we have. I'm just drawing a blank at the moment.
Oh, you're disappointing me. Disney's Robin Hood. He's the voice of Prince John.
That's right. Oh,
Yeah.
Oscar.
Oh, and there's a cameo from Carol Spinell. What are you doing here? Very brief cameo. Me too.
Me too. That's right. I forgot he's in that.
Yeah. He's Prince John. I mean, brilliant actor. Peter Ustinov is fantastic.
Why does this remind me of Wallace and Gromit, The Wrong Trousers?
Well, it's a heist movie.
Yeah.
Mallory Gallery's still very
very
far. I love the signs in this.
Ham hock.
And a very brief audio cameo here, of course, by the great Jerry Nelson, who, in addition to...
It's gotta be Jerry.
That's Jerry, and who we saw earlier in the park with his daughter Christine, Floyd Pepper, New Zealand, Pops. Oh, God, this stuff here with the Pizza Twins. But then, of course, did the announcer for Pigs in Space and Veterinarians Hospital as well. Did all the Muppets announcing because he had that great voice. I love this stuff here with the Pizza Twin.
What's the name? What's your name?
Again, that sort of mentalist logic of, pick a number between 1 and 3. That's the name on the slip. Yeah. I like Fozzie's reaction here. I'll eat it. What has to be the absolute worst security guard as he comes here. He opens the door for this pizza that nobody ordered, and then he just lets them all walk right past. That slip. That's actually not the slip. As all the Muppets go by. And somebody's there carrying Swedish Chef, I think, or Swedish Chef's carrying the Union Jack.
Heck yeah.
There goes Lips, Dr. Teeth, Animal.
I never noticed the flag before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but you ever watching a Muppet movie, pay attention to the signage, because they always do something great on them.
Yeah. But that scene where they're outside the, that's one of my favorite scenes. I can do that scene from memory, and will do that scene from memory. It's such fun. All the stuff about, we're all family of the blowtorch. Who said anything about a blowtorch? I've got the paper towels. How are we going to cut the bars if... Nope, there's the socks.
The socks.
Maybe we'll just ring the doorbell. Oh, and now this is a fantastic... We talked about this with Mike Quinn, but we'll talk about it again. This is the moment that Dave Goelz always thought, well, I'm going to die, which is them climbing the roof up here, And this is all done. This is a fake wall that's built. There's like a stack, and they're all the Muppet performers are all like piled on top of each other with like boards in between, and this jack is lifting them up into the air. And if anything goes wrong, they could literally be, their arms are all on all of their arms are on the other side of the beam there. But if anything goes wrong with that effect, they could have all been crushed. And Dave was particularly nervous about doing that one. Mike, as we talked to Mike Quinn, he wasn't worried about it at all. But there's Dave talks about it in a documentary called Muppet Guys Talking, and he said it was rather hair-raising.
And just by chance.
Super Wheels.
Super Wheels stunt.
And I love this Piggy's reaction here. It's classic Frank Oz. That, you know, an unbelievable coincidence.
And they have a light bulb that will open any lock.
Control room. Doop, doop, doop. You notice that obviously this is a stunt beaker here, which is why the hair looks a little weird on Beaky there. Whoop! Because there were stunt beakers that were beakers whose heads would inflate, beakers whose noses would explode, beakers whose eyes would light up. Frequently build separate. It wasn't unusual to build a couple dozen beaker puppets for whatever they were doing.
Yeah, like the ones that the head dropped down.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a good effect.
And again, I just love these group shots. Mm-hmm. And there's so many like just great group shots in this film. The fabulous baseball diamond. And that's about to pay off it's a great gag for a diamond to begin with. Now we're about to pay that off with.
And then, the baseball glove. I said, get down there. I suggest we jump. That's got to be 100 feet. I didn't say it was a good idea.
That's a line that I use I didn't say that was a good suggestion, is a line that I use fairly anytime I suggest something. When you and I used to work together, I would say that. I think both of us would use that frequently, but I know that I will frequently use the line, I didn't say it was a good suggestion, or I didn't say it was a good idea. We'll have to catch those thieves red-handed. What? Okay, right here. Here's the paper towels. And Animal's already halfway down.
You got the stunt, full body Piggy.
Yeah, stunt driver, Piggy mask. This is great, lowering the characters down.
And the chain.
Oh, I love this movie. This is such a great. Look at this. This is a great Scooter's got his legs out. He's gonna go next.
You got the full. These 2 more miles.
At least 2 more miles. And there's this sort of wall of Muppets here. I love this.
No one notices.
And nobody. And Dr. Teeth up at the top there. Piggy outruns the police. And there are the characters. And I just love, look at the way Beaker's like hugging the.
He's like clamped onto it for dear life. Everyone else is just sitting there.
She grabs that. And Fozzie.
The light slowly illuminates.
Fozzie just kind of creeping into the shot is wonderful, and the characters all drop down. They grab Charles Grodin. They start talking, and then this is just fantastic. Look at this. This is fantastic. Animal catches it, and now watch what's going on here with the puppets. They're smart. They're using all their live hands. Lou's catching it.
Yep.
They're using all your live hand characters. Dr. Teeth. Now we throw it. Boom, over to Fozzie.
Dr. Teeth was live hands.
Yeah. And you give the impression that, they're playing baseball, but it's just all very carefully.
You bring in the sports commentator who, again, made an appearance before in the Happiness Hotel.
Only time you'll see Louis Kazagger in any of the Muppet movies. Actually, he appears in a couple of them. He's really got like a featured part. There's Pops in the wind-up. You'll never see any of the Rod puppet characters catch it. It's all these live hand guys, but it's still, anything that sells the illusion that these characters are Scooter selling popcorn.
Scooter selling popcorn.
Which, of course, Scooter does in all of the classic Muppet movies. Bo is wrestling with Charles Grodin. Animals chasing the women.
Who's got the fish bat? I wonder if that's where they got the idea from Alf or Booyah Baseball.
I don't know. The broadside of a barn. Picture the picture. It's a great line. And there we go. And the rats wind up.
He doesn't even look. He turns his head around.
And Kermit's gonna get it. We're winding down to the end of this film. Great reactions here from the characters.
Fozzie hides behind the rat.
Yeah, I actually like that moment. I've always liked that moment where Fozzie grabs Rizzo and pulls him back to protect him. I think it's a nice little thing there. Very protective of Fozzie. And this is actually there's a thing in an old Muppet News Club letter where they talk about how that's done. This is actually it's sugar cane, or it's sugar glass. So it breaks very, very easily. It's stunt glass,
Yeah.
Not unlike a glass bottle that you see when they break glass bottles in the movies. It's not a real glass bottle. It's sugar made to look like glass, so that it breaks easily and it breaks safely. Nobody gets hurt.
Animal sitting with his choice.
And then
now he's got a different gun.
There you go. Great shot of the characters here. And I like this. I actually like this little exchange between. I like Piggy's. Piggy's got a great line here coming up that I love. This little moment here between her and Charles Grodin. Very sweet. But she's got a great line that I love. Which the world on a silver platter turned to iron bars. But really, this. Somewhere along between wrong and right. You're wrong. You're wrong. And he's right. I love that. It's a nice little line. Twins and pig foil heist. And there's Statler and Waldorf again, closing out the movie with a little heckle.
While they're in first class, instead of turning back,
and the Muppets are all right where we start them. And this is another one that I love this. Oh, I'll tell you, when I remember I was a kid and I went to see this, and as I mentioned earlier, Pops was one of my favorite characters at the time. The first time I saw this, my mother will tell you this story too. I was horrified. I was horrified at this part of the film. I was in tears because he comes in and he says, "Oh, you guys are, how far are we? We're about 500 feet." And he grabs. The first character he grabs Pops and throws him out of the plane. And I was just horrified as a kid and was in tears at the end of the film because Pops. And now, of course, now you see them and you see that they've got parachutes. They're flying.
Got parachutes on.
That was a horrifying moment for me as a kid. That was traumatizing because I loved Pops. Oh, and our hero is the Muppet performers, Jim Henson. This is just a great closing number too. Frank Oz, Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Animal Sam. And I remember I saw this movie so many times as a kid. So many times I saw this movie. I remember going to see. The drive-in movie theater in Succothon, New Jersey, which is long gone. It was right on the circle there in Succothon, New Jersey. Also starring Charles Grodin and Diana Rigg. I mentioned Jerry Nelson, Richard Hunt, whose names I didn't mention earlier, but they're.
We got our listed cameos of John Cleese, Robert Morley,
Peter
Ustinov, and Jack Ordner.
Meyer, Louise Golden, Kathy Mullen, Mike Quinn, Brian Meal, Brian Henson, Robert Barnett,
Mikey. Shout out to Mikey.
Carol Spinney,
Winnie.
But I remember going to see this as a double feature at the movie theaters, and it was this and what was the other one? And E.T. And I remember they did it so backwards. I had to sit through E.T., which is the most boring movie of all time. And before I could get to the Great Muppet Caper, I remember just being like, it was one of my favorite movies, but I had to like sit through one of my least favorite movies to get to it. And man, if you think this film is slow and has pacing issues, you've clearly never sat through E.T. Charlie Wilcox. Oh, Charlie Wilcox is who I mentioned earlier. Lyle Conway, Tim Rose, Fosfazakis, Larry Jameson. Oh, Amy Van Gilder, who Amy Van Gilder earned the credit of Muppet Doctor because she was the one responsible for the piggy heads. A lot of the research on the piggy heads for the musical number there. Oh, Joe Raposo, beautiful music there from him. Some of his best work too.
Yeah, like the big band version of the songs that were slower before, but now you've stepped them up.
One of my favorite films. Thank you for sharing this with me, Matt, and watching this with me. This is I love watching this film. My wife won't watch it with me because I talk. Here we go, and of course we close with Gonzo. Boom! I'll send you each a copy. I love that. I'm still waiting for my copy, Gonzo. Thank you very much.
I sent you $20. Where is it?
Yeah, but so there it is, the Great Muppet Caper.
Yeah, 40 years.
And if you're still listening to us, thank you for joining us, and thank you for letting me watch. Thank you for watching my favorite. It's been such a treat watching my favorite movie with my best friend. I love this.
You've been waiting for this one for a while now.
I have. It's funny, is that my wife won't watch this movie with me because I talk through it.
We're starting to make a habit of that.
She refuses to watch Muppet movies with me because I talk to them. I try to be conscientious of that when I watch the movies with the kids. My daughter is now at that age where she's seen these movies enough times that if I start talking and giving behind the scenes stuff, she finds it interesting. But I also tell her, like, if I get to be annoying, just tell me to stop. I'll stop talking about the movies. But she goes, no, I love it. But you can just see it in her eyes, like, please stop. I'm begging you.
Not again. Can we ever watch one movie without you talking through it?
She'll politely tell me that I love hearing you talk. I love hearing you talk about stuff like this. But you can just sort of see you can see it in her eyes, like, just give me like 5 minutes of this film without you talking. But absolutely one of my favorite films. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I enjoy these. They need to start making more Muppet movies because we got through a good chunk of them already now.
You know what? I know Disney won't do this. I get a little frustrated that Disney won't do this. I know you want to sort of maintain the illusion, but really, they need to do the Great Muppet Caper. They need to release these movies and let Frank Oz and Dave Goelz and whoever else do commentary on these things. I don't know if Frank ever would. I don't think it's really in his nature, but as he gets older, he's starting to open up a little bit more and talk about stuff. But they really, I'd like them to put a bit more of a spotlight on the performers and let them talk about these performances, because really it's a bygone era, and I think it was Frank's current wife was finally the one who sat him down and said, and God bless this woman, she sat him down at one point and said, if you don't talk about it, nobody else will. That she made him really, he was one of the last standing guys to talk about Jim and to talk about, nobody else was going to know who Richard Hunt and Jerry Nelson and these other guys and Don Saleen were, going to be lost to history if Frank didn't start talking about them. So it's a good thing. He's opened up a little bit over the years, over the course of the last 10 years. He's opened up a little bit. But really, they really need to get Dave and Frank particularly to sit down and talk about some of this stuff, because it's amazing. It's really amazing.
We're trying to do our parts. We've had Matt Vogel, Mike Quinn.
Yep. And anytime you've had me in, I've told you my goal. I wasn't particularly good about it today, but my goal anytime I'm on with you is to talk about talk about Richard Hunt, talk about Jerry Nelson, talk about Jerry Jewell, talk about these guys, because they really the work they did was unparalleled. It was amazing. It was beautiful, and they were all part of. Jim was a creative genius. Don't get me wrong there. Jim, there's a lot written about Jim, and it's all deserved. But Jim's real talent was his eye for finding people and to surround himself with people, and surround himself with people who would do the kind of work that he wanted to, who could sort of carry out his vision. And, Frank is one of those, Dave is one of those, Jerry Jewell is really and truly one of those who doesn't get enough credit, because his sense of humor and his sensibilities were so finely tuned to Jim's. So he needs a lot of credit. Don Celine, Bonnie Erickson, the whole Muppet Workshop. I'm now starting to see. We're now reaching a point where I'm seeing interviews and stuff where people are talking about the individual puppets and the characters, and they're crediting who built the original. Callista Hendrickson, who we lost last year. Raleigh Cruson, who built like Red Fraggle, and a number of other characters. These are actually. You don't think about it, but these people are really important to the pop culture. These iconic characters that we devour and love and enjoy. It's not just Jim Henson making it happen. It was Jim and his team of performers and his team of puppet builders and his team of puppet designers and his team of costume designers. And a team of writers and creative people who really made all of this work. It is not just one man. And again, I say there's a lot written about Jim that is certainly earned. He was amazing and he was a genius in his own right. But he was a big cog who did his work because he surrounded himself with the right little cogs around him.
Yeah, and I draw the similarity to Walt Disney. I think, okay, Walt Disney gets credit for Snow White, the theme parks, but that might have been Walt's vision, but it was all the people that.
It's Ollie Johnston, it's Frank Thomas, it's Ub Iwerks, it's all of the the Imagineering people, it's all of the storyboard artists and story artists and animators who worked around him.
He took under his wing, and he saw the potential that they had.
Yeah.
And nurtured it in a way to be able to, for them as a collective to create these legacy pieces and things that we all now enjoy 20, 30, 40, 50, 90 years later.
I'm trying to think, when was Snow White was 1939?
7?
No, you're right. I'm sorry, 1937. Right, because I remember it turning 50 when I was in 3rd grade, so that would be 1937. Mm-hmm. So we're now. What it's coming up on it's 80 some odd years. Wow, 84 years. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, well, just my point. Mickey himself is over 90 now.
Wow, yeah, 1929. 28. Wow.
So we are fastly approaching Mickey's centennial birthday.
100th. Oh my gosh. I'm not a huge, as you and I have discussed, I enjoy Disney. I'm not a big Disney person, but I gotta admit, even I'm looking forward to Mickey turning 100. But at the same time, I also remember Mickey's 50th. So if Mickey turns 100, hold up.
Well, it's,
Wait a minute. This
I was
is a
on
con.
another show. We're talking about the theme parks, and we're talking about Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary coming up. And I go, yes, I can honestly say I've been to Walt Disney World every decade it's been open.
God, I remember Disney World celebrating its. I was down there one of the years that they had an anniversary. I want to say, what year did Disney World open?
71.
71. I was down there. I might have been down there for 10. I was down there for the 15th. I was definitely down there for the 15th.
Might have been there for the 15th. I know I was there for the 20th. I was definitely down there for the 25th.
Yeah, I was definitely there for the 15th. And somebody that I was with, like one of my sisters, won us something because it was like one of those, you'd walk in and they'd take your ticket and they'd be like, "Oh, you won a bag of popcorn or something." I can't remember what but one of my sisters won us something.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that exactly because I always wanted
or my dad,
one of those one of those visors that had the lights on the front. For whatever reason, I thought it was the coolest thing, and I always wanted that. And someone cut me in line.
No.
And they won something.
Oh.
I was so aggravated. But even my mother, who just lets everything roll, she got aggravated that this woman cut me in line to get into the park, and she ended up winning something.
Oh no.
Yes.
Oh. Wow. How old were you?
I'm your age, so
Yeah, but how old? I don't know. I mean, for all I know, this happened to you last year.
It's definitely not last year. I didn't travel anywhere last year.
No, well, I mean,
were
you
like
like
the 20th or the 15th anniversary that they did that?
So you would have been either like 8 or 13, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd say probably it was probably the 15th then, because
Okay.
I remember being on the younger end.
Oh man, that's rough. Oh, that's rough. Oh.
So. Yeah.
Now I feel like I wanna like send you a light up visor now.
Probably electrocuted half the people that were. I don't know.
There you go. Well, yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember. Thinking back, remembering these anniversaries. The 25th, my wife was working down there at that time.
Right.
So,
I love getting your wife on the story on the subject of. That's what you need. You need to get your wife on here to tell some of her. Both of you need to tell some of your "I worked at Disney" because your wife's got some great "I worked at Disney" stories. I love some of her stories.
Her stories are better than mine.
Yeah, she's got some good ones though.
Oh, absolutely.
I've told her no, I've told, who did I tell? I think I might have told my kids. I know I've told my wife the Chip and Dale and Jafar story because that's my favorite thing ever. I won't tell it now because really you need to get your wife on to tell the Chip and Dale and Jafar story.
I've been meaning to get her on. And we've been discussing something.
Story.
We've been discussing some things, and we'll see what the near future holds. But on that bombshell, we'll save that for another day. Thank you again for coming on.
That's another one. That's another one for the Patreon. There you go.
Yep.
Get your wife to tell the Chip and Dale and Jafar story on the Patreon. And maybe if we really get her to tell the Michael J. Fox story, which is okay.
I was just gonna say it should be the Michael J. Fox story.
The Michael J. Fox story is okay. But there are people in this world who do like Michael J. Fox, myself included. If you don't like Michael J. Fox, his wife's got a great Michael J. Fox story. If you do like Michael J. Fox, you don't want to hear the story. But the Chip and Dale and Jafar is I love that story. That's so fantastic. That's one for the Patreon.
Yes, I will see how I can bribe her.
All right. Tell her you'll buy her a light up hat.
She probably would have won it herself. I'm the Charlie Brown one. Oh, I won this. I won tickets. I won a hat. I won a free popcorn. What did you get? A rock.
I got a rock. I gotta rock. Oh.
Alrighty, sir.
All right. Well, thank you again for having me on, and thank you for enjoying my favorite movie with me.
Always a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this.
Me too.
Thank you again to Matt Leonard for joining us this week, talking about The Great Muppet Caper. What are some of your favorite moments from from that film? It's such a spectacular movie if you haven't figured out already how much both of us like that movie. Let us know on the social. Join us on social, on Facebook. Our Facebook group is facebook.com/group/Disney Marvels Podcast. Instagram at Disney Marvels Podcast, TikTok at Disney Marvels Podcast, and on Twitter at Disney Marvels. Also find us on YouTube. Subscribe to our channel there where we do go live. We went live this past week. We're going live again this weekend. This weekend's topic will be The Bad Batch, Star Wars The Bad Batch. So check out some of those episodes and join us for a discussion on it on Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so adjust your clocks accordingly. Find links all over at the different social media places, or just look up Disney Marvels Podcast on YouTube. Also, feel free to join the show and have your voice be heard. Leave us a voice message through the Anchor app or Anchor.fm website, or record it electronically on your smart device or computer and email it to us. Or any suggestions or questions that you may have, email disneymarvels@gmail.com. Don't forget to also check out the Disney Marvels blog at disneymarvels.blogspot.com. Link to all of these are in the show notes. I want to thank you for your time. I know how little time you have, and the fact that you spent some of this time means a lot. It really does mean a lot to me. It's what keeps me going, knowing that we have this bond, this connection, which is why I'm doing the live show, to try and connect with you all some more. Instead of just being a one-way conversation, trying to make it a two-way conversation. And again, thank you so much for your time. I really truly appreciate it. I always ask, please go on and go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, leave a rating on there. It really helps get the show out, get people to know about the show. Also, tell your friends, family, anyone else who likes Disney. If you see someone randomly at the grocery store, let them know too. Maybe a little strange, but hey, why not? It's a Disney community. We're all connected in one way. We all have that thing in common. Tell them to check out the Disney Marvels Podcast. Keep this family growing and getting stronger. Thank you again for your time. Again, I know it sounds repetitive, and I always say it, but I really do always mean it. It does me good. It warms my heart when I know that people out there are enjoying this show. I enjoy bringing it to you, and in fact, again, that you're enjoying it. You use it to escape, to help you with your commute, listen to while you're out walking or running, doing chores around the house, whatever you do. We get to spend some time together. And in a time in the world where we're just starting to be able to get back to spending time together, again, I think it's a little something special. Thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. And also consider becoming a premium subscriber. Help the show out. You can do this over at anchor.fm/DisneyMarvels/support, or find our Patreon page where you can get some cool stuff too. And also we got our merchandise shop. Get some cool Disney Marvel stuff for around the house to wear. All this stuff. Links are in the show notes. Because remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. whatever you're facing out there, troubles, hardship, difficulties may be weighing you down. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. You are special. You are important. You are meant to be you, not somebody else. And you are not alone. You can overcome this. And if you need help, that's okay too. There's a light inside of you that needs to shine. Don't be afraid of it. It is beautiful. It is powerful. And it is meant for everyone to see. Because it is you. It is the true you. Let it be seen. Let it shine. Let it shine for everyone. Never give up. Never give in. Be your own hero. Now I'd like to end this show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. The motion picture has become one of the marvels of all time, a true wonder of the world in its magical powers. But what is brought to the screen for every man and his family is to see and ponder has been even more wonderful. Again, that's from Walt Disney. Thank you again for listening, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Gee, Mr. Tarkanian, we thought identical twins working on a newspaper would make an interesting story.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't. Especially since you two guys don't look anything alike.
Well, that's because Fozzie's not wearing his hat. Fozzie, put your hat back on.
Oh, yes, sir. See?
Oh, yeah. I can see it now.